Good evening, good afternoon, and welcome wherever you are in this weird, wild, wacky world of ours, and welcome to the exciting installment of Requiem for London. This evening's scene takes place in the Shard, a secretive prison complex located somewhere within the city of London proper. It is a clean, sterile room that Marcus finds himself in. There is a single metal chair that is located in the center of the room facing a table, a black wooden table that has a number of cameras set up behind it with cameras and recording equipment, etc. Joshua Bainforth, the Archon of the City of London, one of them, will stride into the room as he places down a dossier, a ledger book on the table, and will flick it open with one hand as he clicks a pen out. He will then turn on the recording equipment and he will say, "Beginning interrogation of Mr. Marcus Irons on this date at this time. Mr. Irons, I would like you to please, if you would not mind, articulate your full name and place of birth."
My name is Marcus Irons. I was born in Bristol, 1965.
He makes a note. Very well. How long have you been an occupant in residence in the City of London?
If I've guessed the night properly, 2 months now.
I see. Very well. In your own words, Mr. Irons, if you would be so kind to please elaborate to me how certain entities, whom I understand that you and I shall not name in this place, how it is you came to be aware of certain individuals and why it is that you came to give reference to them in public.
It was a few nights after my embrace. My sire had taken me to his residence, his haven, and
May I have your sire's name, please?
He introduced himself as Sir Alsop to me. I never found out what his first name was.
And where was this haven in question?
Out of character, I only know that it was in one outside of the boroughs of London, somewhere around. I don't know if it was like.
Okay, that's good. We'll say you give the address as you know it. Basically,
he gives the address as a note, and out of character, he'll give the correct address as he knows it.
Okay, Joshua will make notes. Please continue.
After some verbal altercation and I think the use of dominate on my person, I had decided to play along as if I'd agreed to the fate that had been put upon me and was miming the interested fledgling that had given up on trying to escape. During one of these sessions, I came too close to a golden coin depicting a wolf above. That was either giving milk or giving blood in the form of a few drops to two what seemed to be human infants. And beneath that was written a name of a, as far as I know, non-existent clan anymore. And of course, I'll not speak the name since that was the very first. Since that, as I know now, was the trigger. Oh yes, and above the wolf there was also a crescent moon.
You are referring to certain individuals whom I referred to as the prefix dead. Insert name.
Correct.
Very good. Continue.
I grew curious what this coin was about, and my sire just reacted by, I think, giving me the command that within this house I was not to mention the name. Unfortunately for all of us, he didn't dominate me and say that I should never say that word, never giving me the information what this coin was all about, which only piqued my interest even more.
I see. So, please continue.
Yes. So several months later, the situation arose that the puppy dog that I'd adopted several months before got back from half-starved condition, showed up. I used the little animalism I had to have it jump to the window. The window was barred, so I wasn't able to fully pull it through, but at least hold it, put a note to what would become my two retainers, and have the puppy dog hurry back. Thus, using the dog as a means of communication, I found out that a few nights later, my sire was going to attend some sort of social function, and also that most of his schools wouldn't be in the Haven anymore. Thus, I was able to coordinate with my now retainers a way of escape. Needless to say, we were able to do that, and they were able to extricate me out of the building, after which we decided very shortly to head towards London and try our luck there, not knowing what exactly would expect us there, but I just wanted to get away from him.
I see. If I may ask then, how is it that this coin in any way relates to the entities in question?
It relates that about, I would say, about a month after I arrived in this city, and had done a few favors for certain higher functionaries that for the moment will remain unnamed.
No, I'm sorry, Mr. Irons, they won't. You will be honest with me.
Fair enough. I did a mission. Beg your pardon.
He will raise his finger and he will say, however, understand that in speaking to me, you are speaking to the princedom. If you feel as though the information that you may render onto the princedom could or will indeed place you in jeopardy, we do have the ability to protect you, etc.
Okay. So after doing a mission for the prince, seeing if I could track down a certain individual, a certain Alonso, for the prince, and having come back and having found some information on a DVD and CD, I was granted permission to be officially welcomed into the city. So,
if I may ask,
yes.
what information was on said DVD/CD?
That I don't know. I actually made a point of it that when I found it, I didn't look at it. I didn't feel at the time that that was within my pay grade.
Very well. Please continue.
Yes. So with that done, and permission to feed on the city rack gained, I was starting to do some research. One of my points was gaining more information about Kindred Society. So during one of the evenings, I'd already visited the British Museum a few Fridays before, due to the late closing hours and it being winter time. I came across some Kindred, we got talking, and then I thought, well, I might as well drop the name within a sentence and see what sort of reaction I would gain from people trying to see would anyone recognize the name, would they make a comment. Unbeknownst to me, I was going to put my foot deep into the shit without knowing it. Mentioned the word, and then the few kindred that were around me obviously fled. I proceeded to leave the museum. Just outside of the museum, I had 3 cigarettes and waited for 3/4 of an hour to see if there was any effect. My interest obviously being piqued by the whole reaction and also a bit of confusion. Not knowing at the time that the utterance of the name would summon them eventually. Nothing so far happened, so I retreated back into Order Dracul territory in Southwark. Got myself comfortable in Crystal Palace Park, was waiting some more. Nothing happened until the kindred named Alicat showed up. Turns out she was tailing me all the time. I didn't feel particularly attacked, so we exchanged some words. She was curious to see what all the hubbub was about and said, well, if it turns out that you have summoned something dangerous, you might not want to be close to the people you care about. And I thought, well, that sounded like a reasonable enough line of logic. She offered for me to stay over the day at her haven in Carthian territory. And I agreed, not seeing particular harm with that, since the Order Dracul, at least to the best of my knowledge, is not in active conflict with the Carthian movement, and so far I had not gained their ire. We went to a haven. The rest of the night passed without any mishap. We went to sleep. We awoke the next evening, and the haven was completely back, covered in some sort of what I can only describe as shadow ichor, and on a chair in front of us was a big, what I can only describe as a big amalgamation mass of black, shadowy owl looking at us.
I see. If I may ask, this is actually rather important. This ichor, as you described it, did it have a physical presence, or was it more a miasma? As in, could you touch it? Could you feel it?
I personally tried my best not to touch it, but later on, when we fled, I did feel it. It's very hard to describe. It felt like a very thick fog. Frankly,
but it did have
it had
a physical presence.
It had a certain physicality to it. I have to say, I'm no expert on density of materials and stuff, but it was in this weird between state. Didn't feel completely solid, but didn't feel like air either.
Understandable. So yourself and Miss Cat were able to elude the entity in question. How?
I was talking with the entity, trying to stay polite.
It spoke to you?
It spoke to us in what seemed to me perfectly comprehensible English. It was.
What did it say exactly?
Okay. It said that it didn't appreciate me mentioning the name, and Marcus will use the term which Joshua used to paraphrase, the long dead ones. The long dead. Julii,
Yes.
but not saying.
Does he actually say Julii? Because Joshua will.
He doesn't
okay.
say
I was gonna say
Julii.
Joshua
He has
will, like-
learned his lesson. He has learned his lesson. That it was seeking some recompense, I guess, for me saying the name. I was a bit confused and trying to ask what it was really wanting from me, how I could, quote unquote, do right. Just continued speaking in a vague language, saying something about wanting to making deals. While I was doing that, I can only assume that Miss Alicat used one of her kindred abilities to find out that on the roof tiles there was one area that wasn't covered by the Ica, and she moved that away and found a space between the ceiling and the floor of the apartment above. We were in a cellar apartment. I continued talking, but trying to verbally avoid giving the entity any sort of clear confirmation, or even making it clear that I wasn't particularly interested in making a deal, since while we were in the room that was covered with the black ichor, it literally, not figuratively, literally felt as if we were in the stomach of one big, kindred, similar entity. Ah, yes. The entity in question also alluded to the fact that...
An important question, as you just said. Did the entity in question feel kindred-like?
It felt as if the entity had a beast, but a beast I'd never felt. It was extremely intense. I frankly was having I was reasonably fed at the point, but my beast just wanted to get away. It was in an animalistic panic. Thankfully, I was able to keep my wits together.
Quite understandable.
Yes. So Alicat managed to open up this route of escape. She looked at it and helped me up. I was the first one in the crawl space, started crawling for my own life. Turns out all those exercises in boot camp paid off. At which point the entity shifted from a purely owl form, still having the same consistency, into what I can only describe as a sort of were-owl form. Alicat had also managed to get in the space between, but the black taloned hand grasped her leg and clamped tight on it. So, hearing the shout of pain coming from her, I rotated around, grabbed her, and we pulled. And with her struggling and the unpleasant cracking of bones hearing, her foot got ripped off, but I was able to help her continue crawling, moving forward, until we came to some floorboards. I produced my Bowie knife.
Point of clarification, Mr. Irons, if you would please. Are you saying to me that in the process of your escape, Miss Alicat lost a portion of her physical body that was then claimed by the entity?
Yes. And I think the entity ate the foot because it made a comment about, finally, you left me some food. Those being its words.
Please continue.
So, with a somewhat mangled but still functioning alley cat right behind me. I finally managed to get to the floorboards to the apartment above, so that would be on the ground floor. It was only a small hole, so I used my Bowie knife to leverage the floorboards, creating just about a big enough hole. Miss Alley Cat at that point, having transformed her hands into some form of claws and just clawing at it for dear life as well. We made our way out of the hole into the apartment. A mortal appeared, Alley Cat's neighbor from the flat above. I used my limited dominate to dominate the mortal and tell him that we were never here. The domination seemed to work, and he slowly turned around. His whole body language was way more relaxed. I was basically piggybacking Miss Alley Cat on my back as we saw that some sort of black mass was coming through the hole as well. So purely instinctually, I saw that there was a window. I pulled up my scarf over my face to try and obscure myself as good as possible, and jumped out of the window into an alley, starting running and using back alleys to planning to get back to my haven. A few steps further, I turned around my head because the entity was cackling, and the poor mortal, who apparently turned around again, was in its grasp and having its life essence sucked out. It didn't even seem as if the entity was trying to drink the victim's blood. It looked as if they were drinking, I don't know, their soul, their ephemeral energy, their chi, whatever the heck you call it, leaving the lifeless corpse in front of its feet. I saw it saw me, and it directed its words directly towards me, saying that at some point it will be back and we will continue our talk, Mr. Irons, followed by some evil laughter. And I decided, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. No point in hanging around, and ran for my dear own life until we got back to my haven. My retainers helping Miss Alley Cat, making sure she got a drink of blood, and after that she insisted to leave my haven, and that's where I last saw her.
I see. Very interesting. He closes the notebook and he says, "So, I now have your testimony. Mr. Irons, is there anything else you would like me to have noted on the file for matter of record?"
Marcus thinks for a bit. Obviously, it would seem he's going through his memories, double checking. You can see him gently nod as he's mentally checking off different points. Only one more thing. Ever since that incident, I haven't seen nor felt any presence of the entity or similar entities. That is currently all I can remember. He nods quite strongly.
All right. Well, as I've said, you understand that after this conversation, you will have no recollection of this conversation. You will have no recollection of the fact you were here. As a matter of fact, the last thing that you will recall... Actually, hang on, I need to see. Bishop, I've got a question for you, and this is kind of one of the reasons I wanted you to be here.
Yeah.
How much of their memory are they going to take? They're going to take everything about them being in the Shard, right?
Yeah, everything about them being here up until reaching the pickup point, because obviously they don't want they don't want them to know about one of the sheriff's drop-offs. That is strictly in the not. That is something that is restricted to the archons and court officials.
Okay. He will stand up and he will say, I will, however, have it mentioned on your file that you have been incredibly cooperative. Incooperative to the point where it could have been considered to your own detriment. The domain will remember the fact that you chose to put it ahead of your own safety.
I've screwed up, partially unintentionally, and I'm just trying to do right. So, thank you. And yes, I'm aware that a portion of my memory will be taken.
As you say, because it will. Very good. In that case, I'm going to step out of the room now, and when next I see you, we will be having a conversation, no doubt, outside of these walls. I assume that is agreeable to you.
You have been nothing but helpful to me so far, so I don't see why that should change, even with the portion of memory lost.
He nods. Joshua stands up. He looks down at his notebook. One of the things, the big thing that he's written on his notebook is dead clan prefix J plus owl equals question mark. Because that's what I'm taking from this. But he will then stand and he will walk outside. Bishop, I kind of want it to be a matter of public record, if that's okay. Because obviously blue bookings are nice, but I just like it to be said as a matter of public record. The next step in this investigation, because of the lovely Mr. Irons throwing her under a bus, is we're going to have to round up Alley Cat. Okay. I use the phrase round up because he's also going to recommend that she be taken, interrogated, and I'll make a humanity roll for this, immediately terminated.
Okay.
His reason for this is, and I feel it's a valid reason, and I want to make sure that World of Darkness acts like this, the Strix has a physical part of her, which means it has an incredibly powerful sympathetic connection. Does New World work like that?
Depends on the sorcery being employed, but yes, sympathetic connections do exist within the setting and are necessary for certain rituals and magics to be used. Usually for affecting someone outside of sensory range.
Mm-hmm. Basically, he's not sure if that could be used at any time to act as a catalyst for possession of her, which is what he thinks is very likely. Because we're basically dealing with gigantic unknowns, his recommendation is going to be interrogation and immediate termination. Do you require me to make a humanity check for that?
Yes, I'm just deciding what level because it's definitely humanity check just because it involves actively recommending, if not ordering, the death of somebody based on conjecture. Somebody who hasn't technically committed any wrong. Yes, they are.
Oh, absolutely. But as I said, the problem here is that we're dealing with gigantic unknowns, so he's hedging his bets.
Yeah.
Which I think is fair, considering we're basically dealing with vampire boogeymen.
I feel like this would count as premeditated. But you're a step removed. You're a step removed from it because you're not. Will you be committing the act yourself?
If he's ordered to do it himself, he'll do it himself.
Okay. No, we'll put it humanity free because in all likelihood, you'll not be ordered to do it yourself. There are
What's
many,
the
many
roll
roleplays
then?
now. The roll would be 2 dice plus 2 from your touchstone, so 4 dice.
I succeed.
Okay, you feel pretty bad about
I rolled
ordering
an
somebody. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, once again, it's not something he necessarily wanted to do, but it's something he's definitely willing to do. Also, he is going to say he doesn't have a full name. He only has what Mr. Irons was able to tell him, including what was the name you gave me for your sire, Sir Orloff or something like that.
No, Sir Alsop.
Alsop.
ALSOP, I think.
Is that a name that we have any record for?
If you look it up, you'll find that it is a kindred that has been within the domain recently, but has not been seen in quite some time. They are actually. If you look it up, I will write you up a. I'll give you a brief write up on based on what the court and the princedom knows on this individual.
Cool, because I also have the address of his once haven. It may still be his haven,
Okay.
thanks to Marcus, because he gave it to me. Because he had some information that I kind of want to check, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know if I necessarily want to have him hauled in, but I would want to go and talk to him myself in person about what he may or may not know about certain things. Because basically, I've now gotten the connection between the dead Julii and the Strix, because apparently the Strix was talking about them. So that's piqued his interest.
Yeah, that's that's a good conclusion to come to, because that's what I was trying to make clear. Yeah.
All right. In that case, he's just going to recommend that Mr. Irons be deposited, have his memory wiped, take blood, whatever we do as standard practice, and have him deposited back at his haven, or a place where he's not going to meet the sun.
Yeah. That is precisely what happens when Marcus next awakens. He will awaken within his established haven, with no recollection of recent events.
Okay, so that will be the Order Dracul headquarters.
You will very much be aware that your memory has been wiped. It is literally a giant blank spot in your memory that exists for at least a night and a half. So it is fairly obvious that your memory has been tampered with.
As an Archon, Joshua is going to write 2 letters. He's going to write one letter directly to Marcus, and he is going to basically say it's a letter saying the princedom is happy with what you've done. Basically saying basically saying a thank you for cooperating letter. And he's going to write another letter for you to present to your superiors in the Order of Dracul, basically saying you are not in any long-term you are not in any long-term. There is no long-term issue here. You have served the princedom well and are to be commended for your service. He's going to basically put both of those letters into Marcus's pocket, where they're very easy for him to find. One of them, which is addressed to you, the other is inside the other letter, saying, "Please give this to your superiors, informing them that you have done the princedom a service via your frank and open honesty, and are in no means in trouble with us." Basically, to kind of give you a
okay. Fair enough. So let's say the moment he sort of blinks and finds himself back at the headquarters of the Order Dracul, pats himself down, finds that everything is back there where it was, and discovers the letter. goes in a place where he thinks he's reasonably unobserved, slits it open, reads, is very thoughtful about what is written there, and then discovers, please give to superior. So he will walk in and try to locate somebody reasonably high up. To be fair, knowing his luck, he'll probably just run into the Sworn of the Axe and politely ask, where are the superiors, so that he can hand this over and explain his absence. So yeah, he'll do that.
A quick question. Because when you would have conducted this interrogation, because of the interactions of a certain kindred that has removed themselves from your memory, Joshua, you would have been conducting this interrogation with a competitive condition. Now, it will resolve at the end of the scene or at the end of this night. Oh no, it doesn't actually. It lasts for a while. Did you either win or lose some sort of contest or assert power over Marcus in such
Yes.
a way as that it caused a breaking point?
Not as it caused a breaking point, but there was one point where he was saying, I really can't give out names, and Joshua said, no, you will give me the goddamn names, basically. So he definitely asserted dominance in that way, but I don't know if he would have been considered to have asserted it to a point of a breaking point or anything like that now.
Yes, I'm considering whether or not this would constitute a breaking point for Marcus, given that the logical implications of handing out this name for Alicat are extraordinarily grim.
Not that he'll remember it, but yes. Plus, my guy has got the shaken and tempted condition, so for the sake of flavor, I as a player would be okay for at that point being a bit of a break for him, just because he's also recalling the rather horrific ordeal that was getting away from the Strix.
I think
just suggesting.
I think because he doesn't really know the consequences of giving out the name.
I'd say no, that's not true, Bishop. Let's be fair. I openly have said anyone who knew about this was at least being dragged in for questioning, so he would know that at the very least he's made it so Alicat's being dragged to the Shard. At the very least.
That's true.
Shall I do an intelligence and something roll to see how...
It's a case of just because someone goes to the Shard doesn't necessarily mean they'll die there. Case in point. Yeah, it's a case of, are you bringing significant harm to this person?
It could go either way. Marcus could go paranoid and think, oh yeah, they're going to horrifically torture, or he could think, she's involved in this, but as far as I know,
I actually have one for you. I have one for you, Jason. More than likely, yes, because we are going to come for her. Bear in mind how etchy the Carthians are. They'll probably try and defend her, and we will go through them.
Yeah. Okay, no, that's actually a good point. But at the end of the day, I'll let the ST decide. I'm cool either way.
I will say... I'm actually gonna say yeah. You'll probably need to make a humanity check. I'm probably gonna say humanity 5. Um, you don't know the full scale of what's going on.
But my
But
guy has, let's say, due to his background, has got a reasonably good idea that
yeah,
it's probably going to be quite unpleasant for her.
Carthians who get dragged to the Shard aren't gonna come out. At least they haven't in recent years. There was a time, and then they just stopped, which might be a story in and of itself to investigate. But
because that is something my character doesn't know, being as young as he is.
yeah, so
But yeah, I'm happy to do the role. I think that seems justified.
Does that mean I resolve the condition?
yeah, if you're bringing him or yourself to a breaking point, then yes.
Okay.
Hooray! I have
Actually,
no idea what this
isn't
means.
entirely
but hooray.
true. Sometimes Carthians do come out. Bad things happen to them after they do. So, and they are not heard from again. So,
Okay, which dice roller would you like me rolling?
just roll and dice roll and miss because everybody seems to be rolling for humanity checks right now.
Okay, dice roller miscellaneous.
So for humanity check, do you know the dice pool for it?
No.
Okay, so the dice pool depends on the level of the breaking point that you are on, or that you're committing. At this point, it's humanity 5 because you don't really know the full consequences of your actions.
Correct.
And you're several steps removed from what's happening.
Yes.
So that softens the blow. If you absolutely know that ratting her out would kill her, would definitely be humanity 3.
No, I would say he says it is a realistic possibility, but it is not guaranteed either. I would say that is due to the fact that he doesn't currently know how bad the situation is for the Carthians. Yes, he heard that some got ashed, but they might have genuinely been implicated in I don't know, the creation of revenants or just sloppy feeding. So he hasn't got the full extent, but he has got enough extent to know that there is a 50-50 chance. Let's say that.
Yeah, you know you're bringing her to significant harm. You don't know if it will kill her or not because
Correct.
It's not outwardly stated. But yeah, so humanity 5, that's 3 dice plus whatever touchstone bonuses you have. If you have more than one touchstone, you...
Yep, he has 2. One being Rusty, the puppy, and the other one being Richard.
And you're attached to both, yes?
He is attached to both. He's quite fond of them, yes.
Okay, well, no, because attachment is a mechanic. So if you're detached from one, i.e. your humanity is lower than the rating that your touchstone sits on, they effectively don't count. So if you're attached to both, you get plus 3 dice to your humanity roll, which gives you 6 dice in total.
Excellent. Roll 6. 3 successes.
Oh, wow.
With several 10s.
Nice. That's a bit unfortunate, wasn't exceptional. But yes. Okay, you gain the bestial condition for the rest of the evening. You do succeed in retaining your humanity is at its current level. You do not lose sight of yourself in the wake of ratting out someone who basically stuck their neck out for you and potentially saved your life.
What shall I say? Nature survivor.
Oh yeah, you get a little PowerPoint back for this.
Oh wow. Ooh, the karmic scales are going down, and not in a good way.
And obviously Joshua gets a beat and resolves. Yeah, you get a beat in your resolve for condition because you have threatened a moral degeneration of another for your actions.
Longinus would be proud.
Oh no, I think no. I mean, I'm not sure actually he would. I'm pretty sure he wasn't a fan of indulging the beast in such a fashion. But but hey, beats, right?
Yep.
That's how beats work.
That's how beats
So
work,
how is it with humanity rolls? They don't give you anything, right?
you only get a benefit out of humanity check if you roll an exceptional success. If you get an exceptional success,
shoot happens.
Yeah, let me just double check what happens when you get an exceptional success, so I don't have to repeat it in the.
Don't you just gain a dot of? Don't you go up like a level of humanity if you get an exceptional success?
No. What you get is you take the inspired condition. So you basically get a positive condition instead of a negative one. Yes.
There we go then.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And
so
okay.
Good.
Yay! First roll for humanity. I'm surprised it didn't happen sooner.
Hang on, Bishop. I'm currently the winner for the most humanity checks happened in this game. I'm on type by a pretty big margin.
You have made like what? This is like your third or your fourth?
No, this is like my 10th.
Ooh.
You have made quite a lot.
Like, bear in mind, Joshua's killed a lot of people.
Yeah, well, I know you automatically lost one for the embrace. Because you don't roll when you embrace someone, you just lose one. That's why mass embracing is basically a non-factor in this game, unless you're an auto.
Unless your auto coil of the voivode extremely high. And
then
this is purely out of character info.
Zero fucks taken, man. But yeah, so you get a beat and you can conclude your interrogation.
Neat.
Carthian murder.
Cool. If that's all, are we good to outro, or is there anything else we need to
do? As far as I know, I should be good.
Where's the button? Hello?
Sorry about that. So thank you, players, for playing. Thank you, watchers, for watching. This has been another scene in Requiem for London. Have a pleasant evening.